is Jim Fetzer, your host on Authentic News right here on RBN Live this 15th day of April 2020. 2025. Stories for today, we begin. U.S. just lost a war with Russia on the Truth Seeker with Tucker Carlson. And, of course, he's got it right. American policymakers are too arrogant to acknowledge that they have lost a war with Russia over Ukraine. U.S. journalist Tucker Carlson has said Russian officials perceive the Ukraine conflict as a NATO proxy war, a notion that some Western politicians, including U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and former British PM Boris Johnson, have openly agreed with. In an interview with Alex Jones published Wednesday, Carlson accused those perpetuating the hostilities of ignoring that Russia has emerged victoriously. We just lost a war with Russia, the former Fox host declared. The U.S. was running that war. The U.S. military, the Pentagon, state, CIA running the war against Russia. It was never about Ukraine. Tucker expressed concern that nobody will say that out loud, that we're overstating our power. He likened the U.S. to a divorced 60-year-old man attempting to woo a 25-year-old woman, oblivious to how absurd and humiliating he appears. Meanwhile, Russia and China vow to resist Western sanctions. Actually, Russia and Cuba vow to resist Western sanctions, expand strategic partnership. Wow. Deputy foreign ministers agree on multipolar world order, reject neocolonial practices of the West. All things considered, this is a fascinating development. Istanbul. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov and Cuba's First Deputy Foreign Minister Geraldo Portal had consultations in Moscow Monday, reaffirming their commitment to a strategic partnership and a shared vision of global affairs, the Russian Foreign Ministry said. During the talks, both sides exchanged detailed views on bilateral, regional, and global issues and stressed the unacceptability of unilateral coercive measures and neocolonial practices by what they called the collective West, the ministry said in a statement. They voiced support for building a fairer, multipolar world and welcomed Cuba's accession to the BRICS group as a partner country to further the goal. The BRICS is on a roll. And get this. Pentagon chief admits China could sink the entire U.S. carrier fleet in 20 minutes. Why, it's not popping up for me. Here we go. But there it is. Have no doubt about it. China could sink the entire U.S. carrier fleet in 20 minutes. Meanwhile, AntidWar.com reports standing at the edge of the Iranian war cliff. Millions around the world were at the edge of their seat over the weekend, waiting to hear whether Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, in direct talks with the Iranian foreign minister, would ratchet down tensions or would break down and bring on a major Middle East war. If it seems bizarre that the outcome of a meeting between a U.S. president's designated negotiator and a foreign government minister could determine whether we plunge into possibly our biggest war since World War II, that's because it is bizarre. In fact, this is an example excellent of why our founders were so determined to keep warmongering authority out of the executive branch of government. No one person, much less his aide, should have the power to take this country to war. This is by Ron Paul, a very wise man. He's exactly right. Meanwhile, media finds ways to minimize Israel's murder of paramedics. Israeli soldiers on March 23rd massacred 15 Palestinian medics and rescue workers in the city of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip, where Israel's ongoing U.S.-backed genocide has officially killed more than 50,000 Palestinians since October 2023. The slaughter took place before dawn as a convoy of ambulances and a fire truck from the Palestinian Civil Defense Service endeavored to respond to a lethal Israeli attack on another ambulance, which had itself been attempting to rescue victims of an Israeli airstrike. 8 Palestinian Red Crescent paramedics, 6 civil defense workers, and 1 UN staff member were murdered by Israeli gunfire. Their mutilated bodies were bulldozed into mass graves, their vehicles crushed and buried as well. Think about that. They crushed the vehicles and buried them. Talk about consciousness of guilt, a grotesque war crime, and yet the media finds a way to minimize it. Think about this, too. Settlers break into a Church of the Holy Sepulchre to break the effigy of Christ. We actually have this on video. There he is. You are not allowed to have idols. It goes against the Second Amendment. I played this yesterday as well. They're talking about the Noahide laws, which do not permit having idols. That's a Jewish thing. So that the cross, Christ on the cross, statues of Christ, statues of Virgin Mary, the whole bit, those are all forbidden under the Noahide laws. Christians, think twice about why you're supporting Israel. Frankly, they want you dead. Remember, Rabbi Schneerson, who many regarded as the Mashiach, the Jewish Messiah, denied it. He said, no, he couldn't be the Mashiach because there are still Christians alive on planet Earth. If you're a Zionist, a Christian Zionist, just get it. They want you dead. Think about it. Is that what you want to promote, your own death? You want to give them more power, more influence? You want the Noahide laws to come here? Mark my words. The Jewish Messiah cannot return to earth until all Christians are dead. Meanwhile, Hamas, not defeated, military overstretched, coming from the Israeli army chief. Israel's new chief of military has warned that the regime armed forces lack the manpower and resources to fulfill the regime's expansive goals in the besieged Gaza Strip, saying that Hamas remains in control even a year and a half after the outbreak of the war. Military-only strategies cannot fulfill all objectives in Gaza, particularly in the absence of a complementary diplomatic track, said Eyal Zamir to Prime Minister Netanyahu and his cabinet during a recent meeting. The Israeli regime has called for capturing new zones in Gaza, mainly as an expansion of the so-called buffer zones. But many in Israel warned that successfully implementing this could take a considerably long period of time. Yes, maybe never. Meanwhile, aiding and abetting, Israel received major new weapon shipment from the U.S. Yet Donald Trump, far from being a peacemaker, is supporting the slaughter. That's this guy we just elected president of the United States because he said he would be a peacemaker. I told you I'm concerned. I was concerned then, and I'm more alarmed now because he's doing what I was worried he might do. I said I'm just concerned with his foreign policy, especially in regard to Israel. And it's clear. He wants it to end by slaughtering all the Palestinians. This is grotesque. The Israeli military is set to receive a major new weapon shipment from the U.S. in the coming weeks to help prepare for continued operations in Gaza and a potential attack on Iran. Israeli news site Ynet reported Monday. The details of the arms shipment are unclear, but Ynet said it would include 3,000 munitions that would be bombs for Israel's Air Force. The report said the bomb shipment was recently approved by the Trump administration. The Pentagon's Defense Cooperation Agency said Monday the State Department approved a $180 million arm deal for Eton power pack engines that'll go to Israel, but it did not announce any new bomb shipments. Mark my words, everything we send to Israel is to kill Palestinians, innocent men, women, and children. Meanwhile, the U.S. has bombed a cancer hospital in Yemen. With Yemen attack, U.S. continues long history of deliberately bombing hospitals. It makes the words choke in my throat. In repeatedly targeting and destroying a cancer center in Yemen, the U.S. has carried on a long pattern of bombing hospitals. On March 24th, the United States carried out a premeditated attack on the Al-Rasul Al-Razam Oncology Hospital in Sadr, Yemen, turning it to rubble. At least 2 were killed, 13 more injured. It was not an isolated incident. 8 days previously, March 16, Washington launched 13 separate airstrikes against the building, systematically destroying the hospital's 5 blocks. That's the U.S. That's our foreign policy. This is just grotesque, absolutely grotesque. Here's another. Unpacking Israel's war on international humanitarian law. Israel has tried to legally justify its attacks and treatment of Palestinians, even as it goes against international law. Yes, tell me something I don't know. On March 24th, Israel struck a car in northern Gaza and killed Al Jazeera correspondent Osam Shabbat. The 23-year-old is one of countless civilians, men, women, and children Israel has killed since launching what legal scholars describe as a genocidal war on Gaza. Israel often justifies its killing by claiming that the targets are people sympathetic or affiliated with Hamas or other armed factions. This was a justification given for killing Shabbat. Israel also regularly destroys entire neighborhoods and buildings, killing dozens, often hundreds at a time, ostensibly to target a single Hamas operative. For years, Israel has tried to justify these practices by employing lawyers to create shadowy quasi-legal concepts in the hope of establishing new dangerous precedents, according to legal scholars and experts. However, legal scholars told Al Jazeera that neither so-called targeted killings nor disproportionate attacks against civilians have any grounding in international law, nor in the UN Charter, nor in the Geneva Conventions. Completely outrageous. Patrick McShay has a nice piece on my blog. Trump and the media have dismissed the Gaza genocide, and the angry public wants to know why. Trump pulled out a red carpet for Israel PM and International Criminal Court convicted war criminal Bibi Netanyahu for the second time in as many months, too, according to his representatives, discuss tariffs in Gaza. The U.S. will need $1 trillion defense budget if Bibi is successful in taking Trump to bombing Iran for Israel and set America on a path of another regional war in the Middle East, or likely a far larger war in Israel's quest for more land to fulfill Zionism's founding father, Theodore Herzl's Greater Israel agenda. While Israel and the United States did the job of a demolition crew reducing Gaza Strip to piles of rubble and dead bodies, President Trump sounded more like a real estate mogul than a concerned politician in his joint press conference with Netanyahu, describing Gaza as incredible real estate and oceanfront property. He said cluelessly, I don't know why Israel ever gave it up. He completely ignored the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the West Bank that he and the complicit media pretend is the fault of the Palestinians. The IAEA recently reported that Iran has no nuclear weapons, and according to years of reports from CIA and Mossad, Iran has no nuclear weapon program. Yet Bibi has apparently convinced Trump that they already have or soon will have one nuke. Trump must be aware that Netanyahu has been threatening for nearly 25 years that Iran is just months away from having a nuclear weapon, and the Israelis have hounded every president in that period to bomb Iran. Just disgusting. Doesn't Trump know that Israel's internationally reviled and illegal nuclear weapon program was built in secret? Was with the help of traitors in our government, including LBJ, who also conspired with Israel in the false flag attack and attempt to sink the USS Liberty in 1967. They planned to bring the U.S. into the conflict and bomb Cairo. I understand the plan was to nuke Cairo. But the Liberty fought back ferociously. It kept from sinking, all while losing 34 dead and 171 wounded in the process, ruining the conspirators' plan. LBJ then led the cover-up with the help of the senator's treasonous father, Admiral John McCain. That's all exactly right. Meanwhile, hard to believe. Listen to this.
Carlson, Candace Owens, and everyone else. You start slightly criticizing Israel. We got a jail in Louisiana and then one in El Salvador that Israel can send you to via the U.S. government.
You're alluding to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I don't like any of these anti-Semites, and I'm not shy about it. There's no reason to think we're ever going to convince them, but we can put them in jail. We can make their lives miserable. We can cut off their funding.
This guy thinks that simply criticizing how Israel is prosecuting the war is already anti-Semitic. And he wants to throw you in prison for it.
Yeah.
In prison for it.
And by the way, that was an answer to a question about Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. So we're not talking about student visas anymore.
Oh my God.
Now we're talking about core American podcasters, people in media on the right and the left.
Yes.
Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and everyone else. You start slightly criticizing Israel. We got a jail in Louisiana and then one in El Salvador that Israel can send you to via the U.S. government.
Yeah, via the U.S. government. Meanwhile, new Intel CEO linked the Chinese military after investments exposed. A new report claims that Intel, that's the computer chip manufacturer, new CEO has invested in hundreds of Chinese technology firms, including at least 8 companies linked to China's People Liberation Army. According to Reuters, Lip Bhutan was appointed last month as the new CEO of Intel, the largest computer chip maker in the United States and a company that develops products for the U.S. Department of Defense. A review of U.S. and Chinese corporate filings conducted by Reuters discussed that Tan controls over 50 Chinese companies and funds and has majority stake in more than 600 others.
Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy.
Well, as a Princeton graduate, I'm very proud of rival Harvard, which has taken a $2 billion hit after defying the Trump administration. I am impressed. A Trump admin task force announced Monday it would block Harvard from receiving $2.2 billion in federal grants and $60 million in contracts after the Ivy League school defied demands to adopt new policies on student and faculty conduct and admission. Good for Harvard. The Joint Task Force to combat anti-Semitism, which is a crock of shit, because they've redefined anti-Semitism to compromise freedom of speech under the First Amendment, that any criticism of Israel is now defined as anti-Semitism, a total crock. I cannot think of anything I despise more about the Trump administration than moving in this direction. This is despicable. It's un-American. It's undemocratic. In my opinion, it's an impeachable offense. Right there. It was taking a measure because Harvard and Hunter University had not taken adequate steps to address the harassment of Jewish students in recent years. Jewish students are not being harassed. I guarantee 100%. I spent 35 years in higher education. No one gives a damn if someone is Jewish or non-Jewish on these campuses. They don't care. What they do care about is genocide. What they do care about is the slaughter of Palestinians. What they do care about is mass murder. And if you got a government that's going to suppress mass murder, the consequences are going to be enormous. I mean, it's made me a staunch Trump supporter now find him despicable. I mean, how is it this man, who I've supported with so much enthusiasm for so long, including voting for him 3 times, can do something this disgusting, immoral, illegal, violative of his oath of office, where he swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that, of course, includes the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly. Who the hell does this guy think he is? I am just repulsed. This is just outrageous. The Constitution is more important than any president. Even a guy who promised to make America great again, he's not. He's doing the opposite. And those who talk about the United States of America, we appear to have a president who's out to make Israel great again at the expense of the United States. And to implement a policy like that, this is beyond disgusting, And I want all that Trump enthusiasts, remember, I have been on his side through thick and through thin, but this is beyond the pale. This is over the edge. This is violating the Constitution he swore to uphold. And I tell you, this is an impeachable offense. Meanwhile, how Trump's tariffs could shutter Amazon, which of course is dealing with so many products made in China. What do we have? Actually, a video.
In this tiny warehouse in Northern California, Dusty Kenny is getting her products ready to sell on Amazon.
We make baby spoons, baby placemats, bento boxes, bowls, plates, cups, and we manufacture them in China, and they come via sea in all these boxes here.
But now Kenny is facing a giant additional cost, a 125% tariff on all her goods coming from China.
We have tens of thousands of products here in this warehouse. And when you add a tariff to all of that, and you're trying to absorb that for your customer to not raise prices on them, that adds up to an astronomical amount.
On April 2nd, Trump announced big, aggressive tariffs, a 10% baseline on nearly all imports to the U.S., and far steeper rates on many nations.
In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them.
This is my livelihood. This is how we put food on the table. It could put me out of business.
Stocks tumbled amid fears of reciprocal tariffs, rising prices, and slowing consumer spend. Although Trump did put a 90-day pause on tariffs for some countries on April 9th,
prices will go up in the short term. There's no doubt about it.
CNBC sat down with 8 U.S. businesses who sell on Amazon to find out how the new tariffs are having an impact on their prices, their competitors in China, and their customers' willingness to spend.
What's horrific? This is a catastrophe. Meanwhile, we'll be
picks up the rice in the church where a wedding lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? You know I need someone help. When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now these days are gone and I'm not so self-assured. Now I find I've changed my mind and open up the doors.
just to show Trump hadn't thought this through about all this tariff business, he's now had to contradict himself by reversing, for example, exempting phones, computers, other electronics from reciprocal tariffs. My God, didn't you think this through, Donald? What was going through your mind? President Donald Trump exempted a range of everyday products, especially in the electronics category, from reciprocal tariffs when imported into the United States. Items excluded from reciprocal tariffs include smartphones, computers, servers, laptops, tablets, motherboards, processors, memory modules, machines used for manufacturing semiconductor devices, integrated circuits, flat panel displays, and related devices, including the updated guidance from the U.S. Customs and according to updated guidance from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection published on April 11th. The items will be exempt from the tariffs imposed on foreign countries by Trump, including the 145%, now up to 145% tariff imposed on China, which is a major manufacturer and supplier for all these components. Look at that. We, the United States, do not manufacture them. Smartphones, computers, servers, laptop, tablet, motherboard, processors, memory modules, machines used for the manufacturing semiconductor devices, integrated circuit, flat panel displays, related devices. That means when it comes to electronics, we're out to lunch. The United States is not even a player. We're totally dependent on China. You know how many backdoors and spy devices do you think they have backed into all the goodies that we are buying from them? Believe me, it's going to be enormous. Meanwhile, we have a report about the economic aftermath of Trump's Liberation Day tariffs by Robert Stark. Trump's tariff announcement this week has wiped out $8.2 trillion in the stock market value, more than lost during the worst week of the 2008 financial crisis. Last Friday was the worst day for stocks since the COVID crash, and the worst week for stocks since the 2008 financial crisis. This crash was one of three instances with back-to-back 5% or more declines, along with the 2029 Great Depression and the 2008 financial crisis. While even Perma-Bill Jim Cramer predicted a Black Monday event, the stock market rebounded Monday after the false rumor of a pause in tariffs. However, Tuesday was one of the greatest reversals in history, with the S&P 500 gaining 4.1 to down 3 at close. So what the hell is going on? He doesn't have his mind made up. He doesn't know what he's doing. Meanwhile, The Economics of a Dying Empire with Richard Wolff by Chris Hedges. Our levels of craziness are part of the decline, I suspect, of all empires when they consume themselves. Professor Richard Wolff says of America's current situation at the outset of Donald Trump's second term. He joins Chris Hedge on the Chris Hedge Report to discuss the history and rationale behind the decision made by Trump and how it relates to the decline of the U.S. empire. Let's catch a bit of it.
Subordinate to economics, leading to political parties hollowed out of any real political content and abjectly subservient to the dictates of corporations and oligarchs. But as Marx warned, there is a limit to an economy built on the scaffolding of debt expansion. There comes a moment, Marx warned, when there will be no new markets available and no new pools of people who can take on more debt. Capitalism will then turn on the so-called free market itself, along with the values and traditions it claims to defend. It will, in its final stages, pillage the systems and structures that make capitalism possible. It will resort, as it causes widespread suffering, to harsher forms of oppression. It will attempt in a frantic last stand to maintain its profits by looting and pillaging state institutions, contradicting its stated nature. The final stages of capitalism, as Marx grasped, is not capitalism at all. Corporations gobble down government expenditures, in essence taxpayer money, like pigs at a trough. Then the system crashes. Joining me to discuss our late-stage capitalism and what it means for us and the global economy is Professor Richard Wolff. Professor Wolff is a Professor Emeritus of Economics at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and a visiting professor in the graduate program in International Affairs of the New School. He has also taught economics at Yale University, City University of New York, University of Utah, and the University of Paris. So let's talk about late-stage capitalism, the hollowing out of state institutions, Doge, and what the capitalists in the short term, of course, are going to make lots of money, but what it's going to do to the rest of us.
I think this is sensational. You want to listen to it at length. It's right there in the stories for today. Meanwhile, U.S. military academies end racial preferences in admission. Now, I, of course, approve of this, just as I do getting men out of women's sports, just as I do securing the border. It's not that Trump isn't doing some things right. It's that others of enormous import are being mucked up massively. I can't think of anything more vital to America as a nation than freedom of speech, in my opinion. That's what defines us as Americans. We can criticize our government or anyone else we want, free from oppression or penalty or punishment. Trump is reversing all of that, and I damn him for it. U.S. Air Force Academy and the Military Academy at West Point have said race is no longer a factor in their admission process, a policy shift that could mean move ongoing cases closer to settlement. In separate letters sent on April 11th to federal courts in Colorado and New York, the academies requested a 60-day pause in the lawsuits brought against it by students for fair admissions, arguing that admission policies in question are no longer in effect. SFFA, which secured a landmark victory, that's a student for fair admission, in the Supreme Court in 2023, struck down race-based admissions in both public and private universities. They filed lawsuits against the military academies shortly after the ruling. At the time, the court explicitly exempted academies from the same constitutional standards applied to civilian institutions, with Chief Justice Roberts acknowledging they have potentially distinct interests in maintaining a racially diverse officer corps. So they're going against the academies that the Supreme Court had exempted. Meanwhile, U.S. Consumer Price Index drops for the first time in 3 years as energy prices decline. Well, I like this too. There's something else he's doing right. The latest economic report has left many so-called experts scrambling to explain what went wrong with their predictions. After months of dire warnings about rising prices, something unexpected happened to the American economy. Financial analysts who've been predicting doom and gloom are now faced with data contradicting their forecast. Many of these experts had been warning Americans to brace for the impact. Liberal pundits have been particularly vocal about what they call tarifflation. Indeed, they claim Trump's policies would send prices soaring. They insisted families would pay the price. But the numbers tell a different story. Consumer prices actually fell by 0.1% in March, according to newly released data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This marks the first monthly decline in consumer prices in nearly 3 years. It's just he's being inconsistent. He's kind of being wacky about this tariff thing. Meanwhile, here's another. Kennedy Center sets new attendance record under Trump as 76% of visitors make first-time visits. Night sky above Washington, D.C. Potomac River erupted in spectacular color as renowned artist Kai Gu Kine's firework display illuminated the darkness. The dazzling exhibition, titled Interspecies Love Letters, transformed the Capitol skyline into a canvas of light and sound as part of the Kennedy Center's Earth to Space Festival. Visitors gathered along the river walk and crowded the 360-degree rooftop terrace for optimal viewing positions. The first 800 attendees received a special opportunity to participate directly in the show. Indeed, they launched individual fireworks through the artist's custom AI interface. Wow. Meanwhile, illegal immigrants on terror watch list receive Medicaid, unemployment insurance, and going to Dodge. Many also receive student loans, tax refund, food stamps. According to the Department of Government Efficiency, all compliments of the Biden administration. Numerous illegal immigrants with terrorist or criminal links who entered the U.S. under the previous administration received several government benefits, according to the Department of Government Efficiency. Under the Biden admin, it was routine for Border Patrol to admit aliens into the U.S. with no legal status and minimal screening, Dodge said in an April 11 post. According to them, which was the post republished by the White House, Customs and Border Control has so far identified a subset of 6.3 thousand individuals paroled into the United States in 2023 who are on the FBI's terrorist screening center watch list or have criminal records. And Immigration Patrol allowed for an illegal immigrant to temporarily live and potentially work in the country without being subjected to deportation. This is absurd. Meanwhile, a federal prosecutor put a Democrat judge on notice over this awful scheme against ICE. Key takeaways. A federal prosecutor criticized a Democrat judge for holding an ICE agent in contempt after he arrested an illegal alien outside of a Boston courtroom, arguing it undermined immigration enforcement. The controversy centers around sanctuary policies in Boston, where officials have resisted cooperating with ICE, even releasing individuals with violent criminal histories. Experts, including former federal prosecutor Andy McCarthy, emphasized that federal immigration law supersedes state law and that sanctuary cities like Boston are jeopardizing public safety. Yes, Trump, and again I agree, is coming down on sanctuary cities and states hard. I'm glad. Meanwhile, Democrats' new star just said the quiet part out loud about illegal immigration. Politicians are like magicians who occasionally fumble their sleight of hand, revealing the trick everyone suspected but couldn't quite prove. In those unguarded moments when the teleprompter goes blank, the prepared remarks run out, we glimpse the genuine thoughts behind the polished facade. Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas has become quite the prolific fumbler lately. The Democrat congresswoman only weeks ago referred to Texas Governor Greg Abbott as Hot Wheels, a cruel reference to his use of a wheelchair, and flatly refused to apologize, had been on quite the roll. Just yesterday, she called out our city president a mofo in a social media chant, claiming some voters disqualified Vice President Harris simply due to her race or sex. This is really a bit much. If you're wondering why you should care about another attention-seeking politician's outburst, just wait. There's a reason. President Trump recently said that if Crockett represents a new star of the Democratic Party, they're in serious trouble. During a speech at Grace Baptist Church in Connecticut, where attendees reportedly paid $75 to hear her wisdom, Crockett revealed exactly how Democrats view illegal immigrants, and it's worse than you thought. From Breitbart, I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for the country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants, Crockett said in the video. The fact is, none of y'all trying to go and form right now. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation. Let that sink in. A sitting U.S. Congresswoman just suggested we need illegal immigrants because Black Americans are done picking cotton. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Meanwhile, Supreme Court says immigrants on terror watch list, says Trump administration must facilitate the return of deported Maryland man. Must do it because he's a U.S. citizen and he was improperly deported. Meanwhile, Barack Obama defended the New World Order with a scary demand. This guy, I'm sorry to say, is going to go down in history as a traitor to the United States. The globalist establishment declared war on President Trump. There's a new player on the field. And Barack Obama defended the New World Order with a scary demand. It wasn't just Kamala the voters rejected last November 5th. Americans also repudiated the Democrat Party coalition Obama built of woke college students, professional managerial class experts, radical feminists, and Black Lives Matter terrorists. Michelle admitted she never run for president as her family had their turn at the wheel. Obama was undaunted. In a speech at Hamilton College, Barack issued a call to arms for leftist Democrats to sacrifice to defend the liberal New World Order. It has been easy during most of our lifetime to say you are a progressive or say you're for social justice or say you're for free speech and not have to pay a price for it. Implore Democrats who are that just posting on social media they oppose Trump isn't enough, that they need to take concrete action.
It's in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from? All the lonely people.
Well, there are half a dozen more stories. Let me talk about three of them. U.S. service members may have contracted COVID in October 2019 at the military games in Wuhan, meaning attacked China with it. In other words, the U.S. military was used to spread the COVID, which did not originate in China, in the food markets of Wuhan in order to make it appear as though it had come from Wuhan. This is further evidence that the Department of Defense was deeply involved in this attempt to mass murder Americans. Meanwhile, Trump admin fast tracks controversial self-amplifying mRNA vaccine for H5N1 bird flu. I don't like this at all. The Trump admin has granted fast-track designation to a groundbreaking and controversial self-amplifying mRNA vaccine candidate targeting the H5N1 avian influenza virus. I think this is all manufactured. This is COVID 2.0, and it looks as though they got an even worse vaccine, because if it's self-amplifying, that means it can spread faster and do more damage to your body. This is another sign that Trump is not on the up and up, that he actually was behind warp speed, and that he's been playing us for suckers and saps. I am profoundly disturbed. Meanwhile, are you surprised? Top CDC scientist records missing, Health Department says. Dr. Tom Shimabukuro heads the CDC's Immunization Safety Office. Records from a top official at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention are missing. The CDC's parent agency has informed a U.S. senator. Department of Health and Human Service officials told Senator Ron Johnson, my senator, a good guy, in March. They are having difficulty locating records. Sure, because they've been destroyed. More recently, HHS officials said that Dr. Tom Shimabuko's records remain lost and potentially removed from HHS email systems altogether. Evidence of consciousness of guilt. They knew damn well this was damaging. This was a threat to life, to health, to safety. And a lot of people were going to die from it. So now they have concealed or lost the records. This is no surprise. This is just what we ought to have expected. Here's another story. Meta whistleblower, a World Economic Forum Soros plant. Get this. The China syndrome is hardly anything new. 2013, Israel passes U.S. military technology to China. Israel passes U.S. military technology to China. Secret U.S. missile and electro-optic technology was transferred to China by Israel.